The Loveland Frogmen. These amphibious anomalies have shocked and terrified businessmen, farmers, and police officers, and remain one of the most intriguing cryptozoological mysteries in the U.S. The story of these unique creatures begins in May 1915, on a lonely stretch of road that runs along the Miami River in Clermont County, just on the outskirts of a small town known as Loveland, Ohio. At approximately 3:30 a.m., an unnamed businessman claimed to have witnessed 3 bipedal, quasi-reptilian entities congregating by the side of the road. The man pulled his car to the curb and observed these creatures for what he estimated to be about 3 minutes. During this time, he noticed that these strange beings stood between 3 and 4 feet tall, were covered in leathery skin, and had webbed hands and feet. Their most distinguishing feature, however, was their distinctly frog-like heads, which the man claimed bore wrinkles where the hair should have been. Just as the man was about to steal away, one of the creatures suddenly held what the witness could only describe as a wand above its head. The anonymous source further claimed that sparks spewed out of the end of the device. He left post-haste. Thus begins the bizarre legend of the Loveland Frogmen. This tale would be fascinating enough if it ended here, but the 2 most significant encounters in this case, and indeed 2 of the most significant encounters in the annals of cryptozoology, were yet to come. At about 1 a.m. on March 3, 1972, nearly 17 years after the first report, a police officer, who understandably chose to remain anonymous, was traveling along Riverside Road heading towards Loveland when he saw something that would forever change his life. The officer claimed he was driving slowly, due to the substantial amount of ice on the roads, when he saw what looked like a dog by the curb. Suddenly, the animal darted out in front of the cruiser, forcing the officer to slam on the brakes in order to avoid potential collision with the creature. Once the police cruiser came to a halt, its headlights fell upon the prone animal. At this point, the officer describes something that seems literally too bizarre to be true. In the span of seconds, this crouched frog-like creature stood on 2 legs, stared back at the policeman, then scrambled over the guardrail and scurried down the embankment, finally disappearing into the Ohio River. The officer in question described the creature as being 3 to 4 feet tall and weighing in the area of 50 to 75 pounds. He also claimed that its skin had a leathery texture and that the animal's features resembled those of a frog or lizard. Another officer investigated the scene later that evening. He saw no sign of the creature, but reported that there were distinct scratch marks on the guardrail where the animal purportedly crossed. The second sighting occurred 2 weeks later, while police officer Mark Matthews had an encounter of his own. According to the report, Officer Matthews, while driving into Loveland, spotted what he believed to be an injured animal laying on the pavement. Matthews climbed out of his cruiser with the intention of removing the carcass from the already ice-slicked road, when the creature abruptly lurched forward into a crouched position. Taken aback by the frogman's reptilian visage, Matthews unholstered his revolver and took a shot at the creature, which then proceeded to hobble over to the side of the road and step over the guardrail, all while keeping a watchful eye on the trigger-happy officer. Matthew's frogman matched the first officer's description down to the last detail, with the exception of a tail, which was absent in earlier reports. In the years which have followed these events, Officer Matthews has reneged somewhat on his tale. He now claims that the animal in question was nothing more than a large reptile which escaped from its owner. He further insists that the only reason he shot at the creature was to help confirm a fellow officer's story. A story which was, of course, being met with predictable skepticism by their superiors. Whether or not Matthew's change of heart was inspired by ridicule, or the fading memory of an event from which he was 30 years removed, the fact remains that his own testimony counter-indicates his later retraction. Officer Matthews has stated the following in a 2001 email interview. "It was and is no monster. It was not leathery or had wet matted fur. It was not 3 to 5 feet tall. It did not stand erect. The animal I saw was obviously some type of lizard that someone had as a pet that either got too large for its aquarium, escaped by accident, or they simply got tired of. It was less than 3 feet in length, ran across the road, and was probably blinded by my headlights. It presented no aggressive action." Matthews attempted to shoot the creature in order to back up the account of his partner's sighting a few nights prior. But the lizard escaped, most likely to die from its injuries, or from the bitter cold of winter.